Hey everyone, how are you today? I hope June is finding you in a new energy. We're entering a new planetary phase where we're starting to integrate a little bit more. We're starting to come alive a little bit more, maybe. I know that's been the case with me. I feel like I went through a really huge winter season of my life where I was in solitude a lot, just trying to process all of the things, right? Things in my body, patterns. I think we've been trained to fear the process of solitude when in fact it can be a portal to our personal power. We're not meant to be islands. We need each other. At the same time, we need ourselves. And by that, I mean, we need to have the space to hear our soul voice. We need stillness. And I've been teaching about stillness for so many years, but I don't think I've really internalized it until recently, within maybe the last 6 months even, of just my own relationship to silence, my own relationship to the voice and the intimations and feelings that wanted to come through and surface and communicate with me. I've studied a lot about mood and depression and mental illness, emotional science, just really focused on psychology. When I was getting my psychology degree back in the 90s, they really didn't talk about soul. They didn't talk about anything beyond biochemistry and situational environmental stuff. Obviously the genetic stuff, but it was more like behavioral, and really we weren't getting into family system, quantum level, energy grids inside of us and how different personalities are impacted by the environment as high sensitives or empaths. And I think a lot of that is really changing. I just feel today to talk a little bit about that communication, how we communicate with ourselves, our higher selves, how we communicate with others, how our presence is experienced by others, how our presence is experienced by ourselves. We cannot harmonize this world until we harmonize ourselves. And from everything I've read and studied and learned about and have felt to be true for myself, that includes deep listening to oneself, creating space and opportunities to truly nourish myself, my body, my soul at the deepest levels. I have a lot of notes around me that I just felt I'm like a gatherer of notes. You guys have no idea. I have files, but I just grabbed a few today that I felt intuitively would serve. Was kind of up for me in terms of what I'm processing about solitude and communication and the reciprocity between giving and receiving and that whole language that we're all involved in, all this subconscious communication. If you're listening to my podcast last week where I talked with Dr. Lot Valentine, she talked about her near-death experiences. If you didn't get to listen to that, go listen to it because I thought it was really profound. How we are, and you guys have heard this before, but we're all one. We're all on the same grids. Really, we're all connected in the same web of divine connectivity, and we're all trying to figure all of this out. And so when one person awakens or rises, it actually helps the collective. It helps all of us. At the same time, when someone is suffering, we're all feeling it too. So for me, when I get really, really, really narrowed in on what's really happening for all of us, is it's communication. That things are being communicated to us without our knowledge. And they're not all bad, by the way. It's just information coming in that we're absorbing. And especially if you are on more of the empath, high sensitive side, you're probably taking things in that are weighing you down unawares. The goal or the key is to just deeply, deeply listen to ourselves so we can take apart what's ours and what's not. So as I have studied psychology, for me, it's been just this unpacking of what's living under the surface that I can observe rather than suppress or push down. And how can I be a guide for others to observe what's surfacing or what's there or what's been created as a pattern so we can observe it? Because as soon as we see it, it diminishes its power over us. I want to read a quote by Dr. Carolyn Myss. She said, depression in energy terms, depression literally is a release of energy or life force, if you will, without consciousness. I'm going to read that again. In energy terms, depression literally is a release of energy or life force, if you will, without consciousness. If energy is like money, depression is like opening your wallet and announcing, I don't care who takes my money or how it is spent. Prolonged depression inevitably creates chronic exhaustion. If you don't care who spends your money or how much, inevitably you will end up broke. Just so. Without energy, you cannot support your health. There's a lot of layers to that. We're made of energy. Thought forms first enter our systems as energy. When things are incongruent with our bodies in our lives, it shows up in our energy level. So this could be depression, dis-ease, dysfunction, all of those things. But what I think she's talking about here about the life force, it's like a subconscious or an unconscious siphoning of our energy or our life force, our light that lights us up. It's not our fault. It's this coping mechanism that we've developed to exist in this world. It's a way that we've gone into self-preservation in order that we might not hurt or be in pain. All of these control mechanisms we have in place, they have leaks in them. We can't keep our armor up. We can't protect ourselves completely from the world, and that makes us feel unsafe. And so it just creates this, I need to wall myself off. I need to go and be alone. There's a withdrawing that happens. And not only does that happen physically, but internally there's a withdrawal that happens. And so there's a lack of communication between cells, and it can become kind of this numbing process. And there's a lot of antidotes to this. I don't always think it's negative, by the way, for someone to be in a depressed state. Maybe their body is literally stopping them and telling them to listen and stop and go within and incubate and hibernate for a season. And that can be very cathartic and can be very informing. Where I think it can go a little south is when there's a rumination of thoughts of unworthiness about yourself or extreme gaps in how you communicate with others, blocking people out who love you, not seeking help, not being able to have a soul tribe who can help you bounce off some of your deep pains and longings and traumas. I said at the beginning that solitude can be a very powerful thing. Also, there's a shadow side to that. One of these beautiful quotes I love is that when you follow the crowd, you lose yourself. But when you follow your soul, you lose the crowd. When you lose the crowd, that's a good thing. Because the crowd think, the group think, it's not always for your highest good, even though it sort of has this energy that just pulls down rather than expands and enlarges and opens. Following the crowd is a way to lose your soul voice. It's a way to disconnect from yourself, to create breaches in that communication inside of yourself. But when you follow your soul, you lose that crowd, and it can feel very alienating. And so the natural extension of that is I'm going to go alone and be with my thoughts and journal and be in nature, and that's all super healthy. But there can be a prolonged period where that's no longer necessary and you're being called to go into the world and alleviate the suffering of others. Doesn't mean you won't have periods of isolation and hibernation and things like that cyclically. It isn't always a mental illness. It's just your soul trying to recalibrate you and reconnect you to a living matrix that's alive and ready for you to step into and to experience more heightened and a fuller range of elevated emotions and even darker emotions. We're here to feel the full range of everything. I guess my point is when you reach a level at which you can no longer keep self-analyzing and trying to figure out in your head and why is this happening? Why am I the way I am? And who am I? There's only so much of that you can do on your own when it's time to find your soul tribe and connect and get out to alleviate the suffering of others. Marianne Williamson says, when you're hurting and make yourself available to someone else who's hurting, you stop hurting. Now, whether that's a temporary fix or a more permanent one, the idea is that in this giving and receiving that we do as humans, in this communication, in this subatomic, quantum level exchange of energy, we're always giving and receiving. We're breathing in and breathing out. And there's always a give and take. There's a give and receive cycle that we're all a part of. So as we listen more and more deeply, we become connected to what it is that wants to express. Inspiration minus expression equals depression. And so at the beginning of every podcast episode, I try to say the same thing, that this is a podcast for those who long to feel, express, and be who they truly are. So really, we're talking about authenticity. We're talking about if you want the antidote to depression and you're trying to stay in self-preservation by trying to like patch up the energy leaks, that'll only get you so far. But when you step into the unknown and you allow yourself to hurt and feel and be vulnerable and reach out, and then in turn help be in empathy and service to others who are in the same boat, you start to shift. By osmosis, those leaks get patched up. The siphoning of your energy is no longer. I want to just give, let's see how many steps here. It looks like we have 6 steps that I came up with a while ago about authentic alignment. And at the time I called it the path to feminine greatness, but I don't think this is exclusive to women, although the feminine in men could benefit from this because it's very much an internal process. These are all about moving into being who you are. I feel things really deeply. I tend to be in states of melancholy because I can feel the sorrow of the world. I am empathic and sensitive to the plight of humanity. I can see the suffering, etc. And I have to remind myself that that's a trait that I love now, where I would have seen that before as a negative thing in terms of, it's bearing on me, it's heavy. But I've learned to work with it and I've learned to love it. And this is what I was saying with depression, making it your friend, your ally, asking it to inform you about what it's there to teach you and why it lives in you. And usually it's because you care so much that you have to turn into apathy. You have to turn that switch at some point because you cannot keep up at the level of feeling and feeling and feeling and not feeling like anything's coming back to you. So the paradox of this is, before I get into these 6 steps, the paradox of when that happens is that you care so much and you want to give and you gave and you gave and you gave and you're exhausted and you have not learned how to receive unto yourself, to receive love, to receive power. And this has been a huge focus of mine since 2008 when I came up with this creation compass. I teach this in my Stand, Speak, Shine school now. And I will be putting it into my book, but it's basically a giving and receiving model laid out in a north, south, east, west compass. And on the left side of this compass is the feminine. It's all about receiving love and receiving power. On the right side of the compass, on the eastern horizon, is all about giving, more of the masculine side. It's the yang, giving love and giving power, or giving power, empowerment, empowering others. As women, typically, we are so relational that we flip all over to the giving side so fast that we don't generate enough of our reserves in that receiving quadrant to be able to have the wherewithal and the energy to give. So this is where burnout lives. So as I share these 6 steps to this authentic alignment, know that greatness oftentimes is in feeling so deeply. So when I'm talking about this being the path to greatness, what I'm really saying is greatness is not an overt achieve model. It's not that masculine manifested, like quantifiable, measurable thing. You'll know when you're in your greatness when you feel alive inside of yourself. It's a lived experience. It's nothing you accomplish. It's nothing that you're here to prove other than just that connection piece and that communication piece to the divine, to your soul, and to all that is. So those are interconnection pieces. So the first step in this authentic alignment is to focus. There's an acronym I like: follow one course until successful. You identify the reality of where you are and clearly define where you want to be. Notice I didn't say do what you want to do. You can discover where the holes are in your life and what's out of whack or what's out of order for you, and put a structure in place so that this energy can be sourced within you and not siphoned. So this requires focus. It requires identification. It's like, I know what I don't want. And that's a good place to start. But after that, what do I want? I know I don't want to feel this way, but what do I want to feel? And where do I want to be? When I say clearly define where you want to be, you may not know that yet. And as you follow these other steps, you can come back to this because this is all cyclical and it's all a process. There's no beginning or ending point in terms of completion. This is a process that will be ongoing. I always say start with some kind of vision and focus on that in your mind's eye. Start to see it. And that's the first step. Follow one course until successful. People who live in overwhelm and high anxious feelings are multitasking, and this is where the siphoning of your energy comes too, but you're thinking of so many different things and it can be so overwhelming. So identify one thing that you clearly want to create or be, and then see it in your mind's eye. Start to see it. That will take us to the next step, which is to explore. A lot of us were not given the freedom or the permission or the space to really explore our questions. We were told to check things off a list. And so we never really got, we were always doing these things in the exterior and we never really got down into what do I want? What am I super interested in? What am I super curious about? What fascinates me? As you nurture this exploration, this desire builds and builds and builds in you like a fire. And that is very igniting to your energy. Because remember, this whole thing, this whole life, it's all about how you manage your personal energy, not the energy of others, not your environment, not anything outside of you. It's all about how you manage your own energy. In this explore, it can be like a mental exploration or a physical one. It's just giving you space to follow your bliss. Like Joseph Campbell says, follow what fascinates you, irregardless of how you think it will be perceived by others. That actually will light a fire in you. And the third step is to build. So this is where we kind of go into more of a masculine or an outward shift, where we start to put these passions, we've already focused and kind of seen in our mind's eye where we want to be, how we want to feel, and then we're exploring things that fascinate us and we're getting a little bit lit up. The body wants to do something with that. So when I say build, that could sound like a really overwhelming word, but the idea is to just move with it, to do something in the physical that lands it from an idea or a passion or a divine flame in you or whatever, and just lands it into the physical. So you gather things, you gather ideas, you gather resources, you put something down on paper, or you create something that you can look at. Some people like to do vision boards. I certainly have visuals up around me that remind me of what I am building, which is a soul. I'm building my soul. I'm here to evolve. And some of those things will be material and some of them will be resources. But ultimately, I'm building something in myself. I'm building the queendom within. So what I mean by build is just to be able to bring your uniqueness into some kind of a physical manifestation so you can see it. Not just see it in your mind's eye, not just focus on it and explore it, but to actually bring it into some physical, tangible form. I will often have my coaching clients get a 3-ring binder and start to clip things. It used to be in the old days, you clip things from newspapers or magazines. Now we have Pinterest and, Google Images and things where you can do that digitally. But I still like hands-on, cut and paste sort of, right in the margins way of doing it because it does really land it in the physical. So start to build your inner queendom, start to build this for you. Put something down physically, even if it's just a declaration. But I love the idea of putting images in place. So at the beginning of every year, so my birthday is January 2nd, at the beginning of every year, I create like a half of a poster size of just a lot of images that speak to me. Like I have Mary Magdalene on there. I have a healthy salad on there. I have an old picture of me when I was doing pageants on there. I have a picture of Queen Esther and like a cabin that I want to build someday and a picture of my family. Just all of these things that remind me of what I'm actually building in this life. All of the stuff that I'm building with others is completely ancillary to what I'm building inside of myself and in my relationships. So it's all about physical body, soul, beauty. And the cabin's on there, yes, but I had to even ask myself, why am I so drawn to this mountain cabin idea and this log home? And it's well, that's what I want to build that sanctuary in myself. I want to feel that for myself. So do you see that a lot of what we want to build on the outside, whether it's wealth or all these things, we actually just want that inside of us as a feeling, as a lived experience. So for me, that build piece is about inner sanctuary and how I'm nourishing myself so I can be a better receiving vessel. Okay, so we've got step 1 is focused, step 2 is explore, and step 3 is build. Now I want to go circle back to focus for a minute, because remember, it's follow one course until successful. I have a lot of things floating on my vision board. It's almost a B board. It's not really a vision board. But anyway, I have a lot of stuff slapped on there and I could get really overwhelmed. So I'm going to take one thing for now and I'm going to focus on that one thing. Why am I drawn to Mary Magdalene? What is it about a swan that I love? Why does this visual of this healthy salad speak to me? And you'll find that as you move one image into your being, like run it through all your filters, close your eyes after you look at it and see it, you'll recognize that there's many underpinnings and threads with all of the things that you're drawn to, all the things you desire, that they all kind of have the same thread or the same theme. And mine always comes back to, I want to feel peace. I want to feel peace. So if I want to feel peace, I'm going to follow divine feminine. I'm going to build a mountain sanctuary inside of myself. I'm going to nourish my body, etc. So that follow one course until successful for me is peace. We all have different core values. So what really moves me and makes me excited and moves me visually or moves me spiritually or emotionally is going to be different than it is for you. And so find that divine thread for you. Find what it is that you're creating in this process, that you're inviting into your own being as a receiving vessel. Okay, step 4 is to actually create. So now that you have seen it in your mind's eye, you've cultivated that desire with it, you've explored it, you're fascinated, you've put the visuals in place. There's a part of your soul now, again, we're in this masculine piece of this where we're moving on it. We're actively bringing it from spiritual form into physical form. So this means streamlining. It's like, what is the next essential piece for me? This next baby step to create this. So let's just say for my inner mountain sanctuary to find inner peace, one thing I might do to create that is to go grab a candle and stick it on my desk. I mean, it does not have to be, these things do not have to be so incredibly time consuming or massive. They just need to be little things that you can do right now. And when you do little things every day and every moment that you need them, over time, it compounds into great things. So when I'm talking about this path to greatness, I'm just saying people who are themselves feeling like they're living in their greatness, they're living in inner wealth, they're living in inner sanctuary, they're living with light and love and preserving their energy and sourcing it to others. They have learned that this is a consistent practice for them. They didn't just all of a sudden happen upon it. They intentionally put markers into their lives to see it and touch it and feel it and emote with it and work with it and work with their shadows and work with their light sides. So streamlining, what can I do right now? I'm going really minimal with this because when somebody is in a depressive state, they just are in such overwhelm and apathy that they don't know where to start. This is why the spiritual must precede the physical. If you tell a depressed person to go grab a candle and they haven't had the time to source that that's even important to them or what it will do for them or how it will make them feel, it's putting the cart before the horse. So that's why these steps of focus and exploration, like what do you love? What does light you up? What fascinates you? Bring that in. What gives you a little spark of joy? What would that be? Building it into seeing it around you through images. And that creative process alone can be a process of joy and illumination. But when you actually go into this 4th step of creating something, however small, from those ideas, from those passions, that's where your body learns to start trusting you again because you're moving, you're doing it. There are times I like to dip my toe in things, but then there's times I like to dive right in. And sometimes when I dive right in, I do it prematurely. And then I'm stuck in a creative chaos. So there is an order to this. There is a pace to this. And it's all about listening. I just keep going back to that, just deep, deep listening. Enriching with that creative step. When I say step 4 is to create, that should feel enriching. If you're truly in a zone of creativity, you lose track of time, location, even your own identity. Like, you really become immersed in a process. And that's ultimately, I believe, the strongest antidote to depression is to be in your expressive creation, being together, fused to where it doesn't feel like work. When you can make space for your creativity, that's when everything changes, and you're the one that has to eke out that space for yourself. Step 5 is attract. So now we're coming back into the feminine. We started with feminine processes of focus and exploration, and that's all inner work. Then we moved into the masculine of build and create. Next 2 steps are actually processes of alchemizing. So it's taking the passions and the desires you have and what fascinates you and the markers that you've put in your environment and the baby steps you've done to create those things consistently. What happens is magic after this. Now you just sit back in this step of attraction and notice with confidence what you're drawing to yourself now, what's showing up. This is where you become this detective who's gathering evidence for what's working. That because you moved, because you acted on the intimations of your soul, because you brought those things into your environment to look at and feel and smell and taste and touch, now the universe, providence, whatever you want to call it, moves in your favor to start magnetizing to you more and more of what you actually want. Let's go back to depression. When someone is depressed, they kind of enter a state of hopelessness where they don't really see how they can get out of this rut. They can't see it. This is why I say you have to circle back to focus when you've gone through these other steps, because now your focus becomes more and more refined because you start to see what you're attracting. A book, a person says something. You could be anywhere and notice how the universe is leaving clues for you to create more and more of what brings you joy. You really get to fine tune here. You maybe even have a notebook of gathering these evidences of what you're drawing to yourself. And that's where it gets super magical. So you're just a beacon of attraction at this point. Like, you're just seeing yourself as things coming to you, and you don't have to work so hard to track it down. And this is a really divine feminine way of doing business and life and relationships and health, is that you don't have to always seek. You don't have to be in perpetual seeking mode. You can draw to yourself that which you want, that which will bring you to your highest state of being. All right, so gathering the evidence of what you're attracting, noticing it, honoring it, giving gratitude, all of that. So that's step 5, attract. The last step is where you start to feel your transformation. Now, what do I mean by transformation? This is when you have a shift. Not necessarily super measurable, but just you start to notice there's an effect to this process. It's important to recognize it. Remember, we're always deeply listening. We're always observing in all of these steps. But once you've gone from it just being attracted to you to allowing it to transform you, that 6th step is really the step of allowing. See, healing, it comes to you. You don't force it, you allow it. And there's no timeline for this. The art of peaceful living, the art of really claiming that confidence and inner sanctuary and beauty and all of those things really is about living in your own essence. Receiving. So those are the steps. Once you feel some kind of a shift or feel a mini transformation, it could be big or small or just a little spark, that's to be celebrated. Then you can go back to step 1 again, because remember, this is a big circle, and you focus on that. Focus on that little shift, and then come back to deep listening and gratitude. All of these things, they seem so simple and so small, but they're massively important to your evolution as they compound over time. They actually really do alchemize and heal you at the quantum level. They heal patterns, deep ancestral patterns, and allow you to just be this source of love and wisdom and power. Those 3 gates and pillars within you that want to so desperately be expressed. When I think about this authentic alignment or this path to greatness, it really is the path of your soul and your uniqueness, serving the oneness, the highest, which is all of us together. not just one ideology, but the all. It's not about putting yourself out in the world for your image and brand. It's about being in your body and putting your soul out to the world in service to oneness. Such a beautiful concept. We all get to right now be processing these collective fears that are ruminating, and lots of really overt things happening in the planet, lots of trauma, lots of violence, etc. This is all an invitation for us to find sanctuary within. It's an invitation from the soul to what are you going to do about, I remember when I heard about the school shooting, it just really upset me. I couldn't watch the news or anything. In fact, I rarely, if ever, watch the news. But I remember meditating and asking, what can I do? This 18-year-old who shot his grandmother and went and shot up, an elementary school. And as a mother of boys and just feeling what that mother must be feeling, and I just went through the depths with it. And I remember in my meditation asking, what can I do? And it came back to find the opposite of that in yourself. So the opposite of violence is peace. And it's a core value that I hold probably most dear above all others. So it's if I find my own inner peace, I can help heal the collective. I don't understand how it works. I don't understand how this divine connectivity works. But on some level, I just know that that is true. That as I harmonize myself, I am now a force to be able to harmonize the world. And if I never come in contact with another person, as long as I live, heaven forbid, I can still harmonize humanity through the harmonization of my own mind and heart and soul. So those are things that I've been thinking about. I want to circle back to when you're hurting and make yourself available to someone else who's hurting, you stop hurting, because that's just a beautiful way to find yourself. When we're depressed, we feel lost. We feel different. We feel alone. And that loneliness can be so crushing, and it can be so alienating. And we feel that separateness, which is the opposite of love. So the risk of overusing the word love, because I think this might be the first time I've used it this whole episode, I'm really circling back to say, let's love ourselves. Let's love others. That is the force. That is the power. That is what will patch up all of the energy leaks we have. All this life force is being siphoned from us because we care so much. We're overwhelmed. We're tired. Your first and foremost sacred responsibility is to love and care for yourself with compassion. Now, I wish I have mastered this, my friends. I have not. But it is something I'm very aware of. And it's something that I seek to really master in this life with my remaining days, however many years and decades I have left. I really seek this, as this is the true path to greatness. So let me just recap those 6 steps. Focus, explore, build, create, attract, and transform. That balance of the masculine and the feminine and the oneness and the integration is what is going to allow us to have all that we desire and to experience those elevated emotions on a continual basis, and allowing ourselves to really feel the depths of the shadows when it calls for it as well. So thank you so much for listening. I hope that you find your core values. Maybe choose one that you really, really, really want to feel, and start there and focus on that course until successful. I wish you all peace. I wish you all love. Please leave reviews on iTunes. I love that. I love some of the messages I'm getting. I'm loving some of the comments and just the exchange we have on Instagram. That's mostly where I'm hanging out, and also my private Facebook group, Women Seeking Wholeness. Have a glorious week, and we'll talk to you next time on Women Seeking Wholeness.